Welcome back to the channel. This is The Casuals. I'm Jin.
And I'm Saki.
And so today's episode is another episode of Time We're Not Getting Back, and we're continuing off where we last left off on the Halo Reach series. And so this is going to be part 2 of the saga that we'll be talking, and there will probably be many more sagas to come because we just have so many memories about Halo Reach and even just Halo in general. But today should be the last Halo Reach episode specifically. Bearing in mind that depending on how we future format changes, because I do have some plans for this channel in terms of new future format changes. I haven't told Saki here yet. It was kind of a surprise for him, but yeah, we'll have to see where it goes. But so you mentioned that you wanted to share a few stories that you had in mind. I have no idea what they are, so I'm gonna let you take the lead for now. So what would you like to share, Saki?
Yeah, thanks. So, picking up from 2 weeks ago, we were just going through some stories of, funny moments that we had during the campaign. So, I'm gonna continue that campaign shenanigans section right now. So the first one, let's see. I don't know if you'll remember this, but there is a golden elite in each level. He only appears for maybe a minute on certain parts of the level. Like, you have to actually go find him. He's not just gonna like show up in front of you. But his name, I believe, was Bob.
Yes, Bob the Elite.
Bob the Golden Elite. And so I remember I told you about it because I saw him one time and I researched him. I'm like, who the heck? Why is this one golden? Why aren't the other ones golden? Because the others are like silver, blue, and he was the only golden one that I found. And so I researched it. His name was Bob, and he appears in every level. So I told Jin about it, and I'm like, hey, why don't we try to kill this Golden Elite with in every level on Legendary? And you were like, yeah, let's try this. So we got through like some of the levels. We found him, and I remember one level. It was like right before you took off on the planes to go deactivate the tower that we mentioned last time. It was a bit long tower with the two banshees,
Yeah.
all that. Yeah. So we were at the last part before we got to the plains, and I saw him on a random hill out in just in Narnia by himself. He was like a goat, a literal like goat animal. Like the hill was like 90 degrees up, and he was just standing on the wall. I was like, oh, okay, I found him. And we were both shooting at him. There's, those revenants, which are smaller forms of the wraith, which are the Covenant tanks. And those things were shooting at us. We got ghosts driving up super fast, trying to ram into us to road kill us. And I was like, dude, forget everything else. Just kill Bob. And we were both aiming at him. We broke his shield. And right as we were about to get the kill shot, he disappears. And I was like, dang it. We missed by 1 second. Do you remember that?
I think I do remember him being in like that obscure spot, and we were just like, what the hell? And we were like, well, we have to try killing him anyways, but then we were like dealing with so many other like things trying to kill us while we were trying to kill Bob. I think Bob was just chilling up there too. Like, he wasn't really shooting at us, if I remember, because he was, I think, bugged out at that area. So he was just stuck up there, and he couldn't, his detection range was like way off further than any other, like, other type of mobs that would be out there. I can't think of any other mob that would be able to reach the range that we were in. And so he just kept on dancing around, because that's how they react when you shoot them from very far range, until you get enough into their proximity of being able to react to you in terms of their AI, game system, right? So not only did he not shoot back at us, it's insulting that we couldn't kill him in that sense.
I mean, I will add it was legendary, so their shields are a little bit more tankier, but yeah, we were so close, and we were like debating if we wanted to like reset the checkpoint. But when we did that, he doesn't spawn in the same area, so we never found him again.
Yeah, dude, that was like, and it was like the very few times we ever encountered Bob too, mind you. Despite us playing multiple campaign or playing the campaign over and over again, we only saw Bob maybe a total of 5 times, I feel like. I
Yeah,
remember
something
very
like that. It was
vividly meeting him in the beginning mission once.
Mhm.
and then the
Yep.
one where you found him stuck up onto the hill, and like maybe 3 other times, and that's it. He was an extremely rare like spawn.
Yeah, he I don't remember his spawn chance, but yeah, he was very rare when we finally found him on that random hill because he was supposed to be on the floor, but he ended up on the hill for some reason, or the side of the wall technically. And I was like, "Oh my god, I think that's him." And I scoped in with one of those rifles. I think they were DMRs or battle rifles. And I'm like, "Oh my god, it's him, dude. Just fire at him. Forget everything else." I don't, it wasn't even an achievement. It was just like so rare that you're just like you have to kill him.
Hunting! It's hunting! Hunting trophy!
It,
Hurry!
it pretty much was a literal hunting trophy. We just wanted to say, hey, we finally killed him. I mean, we did, but not on that instance I was talking about.
Yeah, I believe we did kill him the first time we ever encountered him, which was on the first level. I believe it was just kind of a coincidence too, because usually, from what I remember, Bob does like to spawn away from hotspots, like places that you usually wouldn't go to, in order to make you seek out for him. But this one time, the first time we met him, I think he spawned directly where everyone else was. So we just went into the enemy camp, and he just happened to be there too. So it's like, oh, there's Bob.
Yeah, that was really weird because, yeah, you're right. He doesn't spawn where everyone else is. You kind of have to go searching for him. But yeah, we were just like, oh, he's right there this time. All right, well, that makes it easy for us.
And he was very easy to kill, mind you, just because of the chaoticness of like everything dying around you. He just happened to be one of them.
Yep, he was just collateral.
Collateral damage, unfortunately.
He never stood a chance. All right, so my next story, it's actually on the same level. It's further into the story. I believe the level was called New Alexandria, where you're mostly flying like a plane,
Yes.
at least like 75% of the level. So in this level, you're going around trying to disable the Covenant like tower, like signal towers. And so as we were, flying around, you have to land on certain buildings. Let alone these are skyscrapers, so you can't really see the floor. So you're just like landing on literally just on like front porches, kind of.
Yeah.
So we were going, and I think there were like 3 or 4 of them we had to disable. But on the third, I believe it was the third one, there were hunters guarding that thing. There were a total of 4 hunters, which are these beefy tank armored guys that just could one-shot you in legendary, which is always fun. But I remember I did this level before I played with you, Jin,
Mm-hmm.
and I told you, dude, there's a switch on the roof of one of these buildings in this level. I don't remember where exactly, but it makes the hunters dance and all the enemies dance instead of, looking at you and trying to kill you. And so you're like, no, that's not real. So I showed him a clip of it, and he's like, oh my gosh, it's real. And so we took, I don't know how many hours trying to find it, but we never found the switch, sadly. Do you remember
Yeah.
that?
I don't think we ever found. Yeah, I don't think we ever found the switch, which was kind of incredible to me because like even the video showed it, but like there was. I don't think back then we were smart enough to look up a tutorial. I think the
Oh
video we
yeah,
just
no.
saw was just like it actually happening and never like how the person actually made it happen. I think it just showed the beginning clip of like them like flipping on the switch and then they just like and then like cuts to the part where they actually get to the hunters and it just shows them
Yeah,
dancing. So we're like,
yeah.
go ahead.
I was gonna say yeah, I'm sure because how the jump cut, just because it was probably some building like halfway across the map that you wouldn't expect.
Yeah.
Or if you did find it, you flip it and you're like, wow, that did nothing. But you never know.
So yeah, we tried finding it on our by ourselves. I'm sure there was a tutorial out there at that point in time. We just never looked it up because we didn't have the brains for it. And so we searched for so long, and then we just were like we were defeated, and we ended up just clearing it the normal way. But man, that was a interesting experience because I think on that same like playthrough in that specific area where there's 2 hunters. I don't remember if there was 4 at that one spot, but there was 2 at least. Where do you remember there's 2 hunters and then there's like a what's it called? There's a tractor. A forklift. A forklift. That's what it is. There's a forklift nearby those hunters, right? Because they're in like a warehouse type thing.
Yes, I actually do remember. I think that I don't know if that was the same level. I remember there was like the forklifts were kind of in the earlier levels.
Yeah, I do remember. I feel like that there was a forklift near. At least there was a box, like those heavy crate boxes for that
Yeah.
level specifically. And I remember the scariest thing was not them one-shotting it. The scariest thing was them flipping the box at you.
Yes, I remember because when you get too close, they kind of like charge at you a little and try to hit you with like their shield arm, and if they hit something else, that goes flying too.
And the physics in Halo dictates that if anything can fly at you at 100 kilometers per hour, you will die.
Oh yeah,
And I've died many times that way.
I do remember. I don't know why. I think we were just bored at one point, but we were trying to kill one of the hunters with the forklift itself because you were able to drive them.
Yes.
So I remember, but the funny thing is, uh, the normal walking speed of I guess Master Chief in that game was a lot faster than the speed of a forklift. So imagine moving like a sloth trying to charge at this like walking tank pretty much. Trying to ram it with a forklift.
Mind you, this very same hunter is shooting at you when you're going so slowly in the forklift. So, you can imagine that we never managed to accomplish that feat of killing a hunter with a forklift, just because it's just basically impossible unless you manage to distract the hunter. But the hunter, I think AI is smart enough to recognize if you're closer, if there's something closer than the target that it's originally shooting at, it will switch to that target that's closer. And so the forklift, you couldn't sneak up on it on the forklift. It's just impossible. Not to mention when
Uh,
there's a hunter, there's always another one around. There's always two
they
hunters.
always yes, they always come in pairs of two.
So you would have to deal with the other hunter being like around the corner, like hello, and then just shoot you. And I think I remember
Yeah.
one time I got close because I think I was the one driving it, and I got
Yeah.
super close to the hunter. But the hunter decided, because I was behind him and you were shooting him in the front, distracting him. And then the hunter decides, yeah, no, you ain't having this fun. And he decides to 180 smack me, and I flew in the air in the forklift, and I landed and I exploded and died.
Yep, I do remember that happened actually a couple different times on different occasions, but yeah, that did happen.
So
And I do want to add, basically the speed of that forklift hitting that hunter. Basically, here's what you can imagine: take a random, tissue Kleenex and go ahead and hit someone with it. That's the damage it would do.
it is
So
so
basically
pitiful.
nothing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is super pitiful. So I don't know why we attended it in the first place, but I thought we thought we probably younger versions of us thought it would be funny, and I think it still was pretty funny back then, just because we just kept on trying over and over again. It just would not work.
Oh yeah, we kept reloading the checkpoints. We tried different ways to do it, but we could just never get close enough because that thing was so slow.
And you had another story?
Yeah, so back to that New Alexandria map where you're flying around. So there was sometimes, because this was, back when the game first came out, maybe a year later, you would have to land your aircraft and then go into the building, disable the tower, come back, take your aircraft and fly away to a different one. Sometimes, though, you would drop your aircraft, you'd go in, disable the tower, you'd come back, and it's just gone. It just despawned because it usually with that level you can call in for new ones. And I think
Yeah.
I think what we did was we cleared one. We were running out, and I'm like, dude, I don't have a plane. Let me call in for a backup for me. And when I did that, I didn't realize that when we walked out, both of them were gone, so we were just stuck there. And it took like 5 minutes for the new ones to come in because they have to fly in from wherever the AI has them fly in from. But yeah, we're just stuck there, and you're like, where'd mine go? It's like, I don't know, because we both have the button to recall for a new aircraft,
Yeah.
and I guess it does it for both if one of us pushes that button.
Because I think my vehicle was there too, and then like you pressed the call because yours disappeared for some reason, but mine was still there. But then when you called it, Mine disappeared all of a sudden. I was just like, well then, mine
Yeah,
disappeared
I
too. What
do.
do we do?
Yeah, and even after learning that the planes disappear if you call for a new one, I told you, hey, go on ahead. I'll meet you there. I got to get a new plane. Mine's on fire. If I get hit once, I'm gone. So you took off. You to the next tower. I was still on the floor waiting for mine to come in. Like I pushed the button, and then all of a sudden it goes silent, and I'm like, why are you so quiet? Like, what happened? You just look at me and you're like, you called the recall button, didn't you? And I was like, yeah, why? I was flying and yours just disappeared. You said your body was just falling just straight down because your plane disappears when you call for new ones. And I totally forgot you were already gone in the air.
It was some Looney Tunes things, dude. Just like flying in the air, vehicle disappears, looks down. Uh-oh, and then I just fall to my death.
Yeah. And then we had to restart taking over the tower because we didn't get a checkpoint. But
Oh
yeah,
man.
I don't know how many times we accidentally did that, even knowing full well knowing that that happens. That when you push the recall call for a new plane, both disappear. I don't know how many times we didn't learn from that situation.
Too many times, dude. Too many times. Oh
Uh,
man. Go ahead.
all right. So that for me, off the top of my head, kind of covers most of the campaign stories. I might have others that I might remember later after this episode, but for now, that'll do it for the campaign. But I do want to cover another thing about Halo Reach was instead of doing campaign, there's a thing called firefight, which is basically survival. There's waves of enemies that come in, you just have to, not die. And so we were on this, I forget the level name, but it was like a beachfront. And you spawn inside the building, there's like an ammo box, grenade box, all that stuff to get supplies. And we're like, after like a few times of playing this, let me add, we played that level dozens and dozens of times.
It was pretty much the only level we played too.
Oh, for a very, very good reason, which I'll get to in a second. But yeah, so we played that beachfront level. You were always, someone that could just have the running speed because, they have different power-ups. So I always had the invisibility. You had the running, so you could just charge in like you do. And I was always the one, in the back at the base, sniping from afar, because that's what I liked. So the reason we always played that level was because on the one of the sides of the building there was a warthog, and it was a missile warthog, so it shoots missiles and not just like a regular machine gun. And so I was like, dude, you think we can get this up to the roof where we like to, chill and like regain our shield and stuff? You're like, yeah, we could try. And so I'm like, all right, you have to try because I can't drive those things in buildings very well. I could drive them outside, on regular terrain, but in a building's a little more difficult. So I had Jin try it, and I was just holding off, the front line. And you're like, got it. I'm like, what? And you got this massive car, the size of the staircase, up the stairs and just parked it right in front of the stairs. So whenever anyone tried to run up to get us, we just had missiles ready for them. And I was just amazed you were able to get it up that small flight of stairs.
I think it was the first try too when I tried it.
Yeah, you were.
It
Yeah,
wasn't like
I think it
multiple
was.
attempts. It was just literally just one try, and it just popped right there. I was like, oh, got it.
Yep. And I was like, all right, well, we have a defense for if they try to come get to us through the building through like a flank route or something.
Yeah. And so after that, the plan became immediately whenever the game started, you would actually drive from now on. From then on, you would actually grab the Warhog, because what would happen is, you would grab the Warhog, go up to the staircase, drive up the staircase, and park it, right? And then you would stay up there. What I would do is I would just run out in the fields. I'd be like,
Yep.
"Come at me!"
Yeah.
I would just charge in.
Whenever we started a new firefight, the plan was, all right, let's choose our technically like classes, because there's like 5 different loadouts that give you different abilities and stuff. So we're like, all right, I'm gonna go with this. You're gonna go with that. and you're like, all right, I'm just gonna, run in, and I'm like, all right, I'll get the Warthog, and so that was just our plan every single time,
And
and it worked.
I did come up with a strategy after that, which was I would spawn in with the rifleman class, which you would spawn in, right?
Right.
And I believe that class had the invisibility like perk or whatever. So
Yeah.
you would turn invisible. I did not like that just because I want to move. So I would do is I would literally get the rifleman class, kill myself with nades, spawn in with the shotgun class because the shotgun class had the running thing, and then I would swap out my weapon, my secondary weapon, which was a grenade launcher. Which, to be fairly honest, it was very hard to use back then. Very unintuitive to be honest, and I would swap out that with the battle rifle, and I would just run in with the shotgun battle rifle combo, and I would have sprint. So I was just like, this is the most genius thing I've ever done. Granted,
Yeah.
it did take one life out of the very limited lives you had, but I mean, that's
We were
what we
pros
just
by
did.
then.
Yeah, we were good at that by then.
I remember you were like, because the grenades have, a second for it to explode, and you're just like, dude, just melee me and kill me so I could just respawn like immediately. And I was like, yeah. I'm like, all right, that works. You don't have to waste grenades either.
Speaking of firefight, what was the longest time we've ever lasted? I feel like most of our average firefight games went on for 30 minutes before, inevitably we would all die and you'd run out of lives. Just the culprit being me because I would die the most.
Yeah, well, that's what you do. That's how it goes when you charge into the front line.
I think we did try seeing how long we could last, and the strat
Actually,
was just literally just staying back inside the building because they would all funnel in. Strangely enough, there's the reason why this map was also really good for holding out for a long time was because there's only two technically. There's only two entrances to where we get. One is in the very front, right? So where we normally would face and where Saki would normally shoot out in front. And one was behind where the Warthog came from. But enemies rarely came from that area. I mean, okay, they still do occasionally get through in there, but it's mainly in the front. So I think eventually we developed a strategy where I think it was I think I chose the medic class plus the shotgun class with the grenade launcher. And what we would do is we would literally I would camp the stairways. You would camp the top. And I would use a grenade launcher just to blast any heavy enemy and use the shotgun in order to kill any close range enemies, right? I think that's how we did it before. And that strat actually worked really well. Minus the fact that Race spawned in later on and started shooting at the building, which they rarely would hit, by the way. For some reason, that balcony where we put the Warthog on was out of the Race's range, like from totally reaching it. They could still reach like the front of the building. But any further than that, they just couldn't do it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So those wraiths also never really moved from those spots. They never like tried to close in on us. They'd always stay out back. That's why it never reached. But also, I do want to go back to that. How long have we played in a firefight? We actually, I don't know if you remember this. I do because it was a huge, a huge thing for me because we've never done it. We actually completed a full firefight, and that took like 2+ hours because I think we set it to legendary.
Yeah.
But it took many attempts. But when we finally did it, I just remember it was like in the like early morning, and all of a sudden it was like late afternoon. And we're like, holy crap, that was one playthrough.
Not to mention, we didn't even know if there was an end. We had no idea if there
Oh
was an
yeah,
end.
we had no idea.
But mind you, I think there was an endless mode. I believe, right? But the one before the endless mode was the hardest difficulty, which was legendary difficulty with like insane amount of mobs running at you. And
With one shot.
yeah, with basically one shots you. But because of the strategy that we came up with, I think essentially we barely made it through at the very end, and it was like I think it was 8 hard rounds, right? 8 hard waves, and each wave was like very long because
Oh yeah, because the way they just kept dropping guys in over and over.
yeah, and the hunters were the nightmare in that one because they would slowly come up your way, and if you did not deal with them early enough, before we came up with the strat, they would just run your,
You're gone.
you're gone. And
You're gone.
basically they could spawn camp you. Essentially, what happens if you're not careful enough, if you let up the building. But essentially, I found out that I could just use a grenade launcher and just abuse the grenade bouncing mechanic. in order to
Yep.
explode it. So like I would literally sit in the stairways, and they would be towards like, so if I'm facing the stairways like at the very like middle of the stairways, they would be towards the hallway towards the left. So I would literally aim the grenade towards the left and just bounce it off and constantly shoot it there, and we would eventually kill the hunters that way. And I believe the elites too. The elites were also nightmares in that game mode. They were beefed up.
Beefed up, and if one ran after you, there was like at least 4 or 5 of them.
Oh, and the biggest nightmare of all, the invisible elite. That was the most painful
Oh,
one.
Dude, when because you can with the invisible elites, they do show a little bit, like they're not completely invisible, but they're very hard to see. And so when I said there's an invisible elite, I remember I was just gone. I jumped off the balcony. I barely survived, and I was like, no, I'm gone. See ya. And you were like, dude, where are you going? I'm like, there's an invisible elite. I'm gone. And you're like, oh. And you took off the other direction. We came back after we killed him.
Because the problem with the invisible elite is not because he's well. The problem is that he is invisible, and he does have the, what's the sword called? Energy beam.
Energy sword.
Energy sword. The problem is that when it's such a chaotic state, the invisible elite becomes even harder to spot just because you're dealing with so many different mobs at once. It's not like he just spawns out alone and like, you know he's there. We don't know when he spawns. He spawns in randomly whenever he wants, and he spawns in anywhere. So he could literally spawn right behind us and we wouldn't know in terms of like the area. So that's why he was such a huge problem, and we've died so many times to him sneaking up behind us without us knowing at all.
Yep. And I literally remember you were just kind of in the front porch area, just shooting down the stairway, just killing everyone. We didn't know he spawned in, but he came up because I was up top scoped in, so I can't see anything besides what I'm looking at. So I have no peripheral vision. But he spawned in, and he just ran up behind you, stabbed you, walked away, and you're like, I found him.
At that point, I think we were kind of used to us dying to the invisible elite. So every time we died, it's just found him. He's somewhere here now. You just gotta find him.
I do remember that. And I do remember we barely made it through the full firefight because we had no extra lives and we were like very low on ammo. But we did it. We barely did it. When like, I guess the pause screen or whatever, the end screen came up, we were like, holy crap, there was an end.
We finished it.
It took a long time. Yeah, it took a long time, but we only did it like once or twice because at one it took freaking forever, so we didn't want to have to just do it. And we get bored after like an hour. We're like, oh, this is too easy. So
it's also the same thing over and over, and you literally just expect the same thing over and over again. The only thing that was different was that actually like kind of took a little spice in it. Was like occasionally the invisible elite would be smart. Or not occasionally, he was actually smart most of the time. Rather, it was kind of scary how smart he was. So what would happen is, at some point we expected him to come after us. So we kind of like waited at the top of the balcony because there's only one way for mobs to get up. Only one way. Literally no other way they can get up. They have to take the staircase. So what we did was, all right. Eventually, we believe that every mob will come in no matter what. So we're like, this invisible elite has to come up the stairs. So what we did was we literally camped the stairs with the warthog, just shooting down at the staircase. This guy was smart. He never ever went into the line of sight of like whatever we were firing at during from the top of the stairs to the bottom of the stairs. He never got within the splash radius of the warthog missiles, and he would always wait. And we thought, he didn't spawn or anything, but every time we thought he didn't spawn, I go down and I die. And just be like, he's still there.
Yep. I remember you're like, oh, okay, he's not there. So you hop off the rockets and you just walk down back to your spot. And then like a second later, he's just like basically staring you dead in the eye, but you can't see him. And he's just like, nah, you're not going to have a good time. And you just die. And you're like, yeah, he's still there. And that's when I'm like, oh crap. So I hop in the car and I'm just firing away until you respawn.
Yeah. And what's another thing about that strip is that you can't solely rely on the Warthog, because here's the problem. If you solely rely on the Warthog, for some reason, sometimes it doesn't insta-kill the grunts. Mind you, the grunts were the most threatening thing to the Warthog. You would think, that doesn't make sense. Why the grunts out of all things, right? wouldn't the elite or hunters be it? No, here's the thing. The elites and hunters were very predictable. You could, you would expect them to not run up the stairs. Very rarely would they run up the stairs, and the hunters don't go up the stairs at all. For some reason, they never went up the stairs. And if they eventually did go up the stairs, they would die. And that's a whole different issue. The issue was when there's a ton of mobs trying to come up the stairs, and the grunts, one of them managed to make through. Usually, they have a sticking plasma grenade, and that takes out a warhog in one shot. So,
Yep. They
so
basically pulled 2 grenades out. You could see it too. They're glowing in their hands, and they just like basically go, "Notice me!" and they just charge at you and suicide bomb.
So, yeah, so eventually we had to come to the realization that you can't really just camp up all the on top of the staircase all day. So eventually we had to form the strategy of just me being down at the lower levels and you staying up top, and even that came with risk, just because the invisibility would 90% of the time kill me on first try without us ever spotting him first, which is why we were kind of surprised when we managed to complete one of the firefight modes, just because we were running out of lives just due to that problem where random invisibility kills me, or some gamer mode where elite shoots or not elite, where a grunt would shoot that plasma rocket at my face from halfway across the map.
The golden, the fuel rod cannon thing. Yeah.
I hated that so much because they would snipe me from across the map. I don't know why they were so cracked at that, but for some reason, those grunts with the fuel rods were absolutely cracked in their aim. I just don't know why.
What's great is with those fuel rod cannons, it's basically like a hunter shot coming at you. It's like this slow projectile. It's not a hit scan, so it's not instant. But when they fire it, it's from a pretty good distance. And the fact that it would still hit you, because I don't know, you just didn't notice it or something, but it took some time to get to you, but it still managed to hit you somehow.
Yeah, it was very frustrating to deal with those. I think the grunts and the grunt fuel rod grunt cannons and the plasma suicide grunts were the most frustrating ones, along with the invisible elites.
Yeah, and speaking of grunts, the reason why the rocket warthog was also not very good is if there are a bunch of grunts and you're firing, they all carry the plasma pistol, so when they charge a shot and hit your warthog, it's basically an EMP, so it just disables it, and it was just constantly disabled.
Yeah. So we only had to use it as desperate measures, which did come in handy once in a while.
I do remember there's one more thing about the firefight staircase with the warthog was one time we were so close to dying, you're like, I have a plan, because there's so many mobs gonna come up the stairs. You're like, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna take the warthog, put it sideways in the stairs, jam it in there somehow so they can't get up, and I'm just gonna run for it. And you did it. You jammed it sideways. They couldn't get through. Let alone I couldn't get out unless I jumped off the building. So I was basically stuck up there, and you were just running around trying to get back up somehow without dying. Do you remember that?
I think eventually I ended up using the jetpack to get up, or I might have died. It was one of those two.
Yeah, I think one time you did jetpack up, but again, we were gonna be stuck up there, and you were the only one with a jetpack because I had invisibility, so that didn't really.
And ammo was very limited, and mind you, and in order to get more ammo, you would have to go downstairs, which was blocked off. So
yeah,
it was a lose-lose situation.
Yep. But I don't know how you crammed a car sideways through a staircase, but you did.
It was magic. It's just one of those ideas that sounds ridiculous, but it works.
Yeah. Basically, you didn't tell me you were going to do that. I was just explaining, but you just took initiative. You took the driver's seat. You drove back down the stairs. I'm like, what are you doing? That's our best defensive thing. You're like, trust me on this. And you were driving back up very slow and just cranking the turn, and you got it jammed somehow in the stairs. So.
Yeah, and even when it blew up, it stuck there. Surprisingly, I thought when it was gonna blow up, I thought it was just gonna fly out somewhere because of Halo physics, but it stuck there. So yeah. Anyways, coming off of that, we're basically getting close to the end of the episode, so I would like to end it there, even though we have so many more memories to talk about. This is basically maybe halfway of what we have. We have so much PvP stories to talk to about, too many in fact, because I believe
Oh.
um,
Oh.
in terms of top in amount of time we played, I think PvP was the most, campaign being second, and firefight being third. So PvP has a lot of interesting stories that we have, and from the memories of past. But unfortunately, for now, we're gonna have to end the episode here. So I'll end it off right here. So I'm Jin,
And I'm Saki.
and this has been the Casuals, and we'll see you next week. Bye bye.
Bye.